Pre-study materials for Constitutional Enforcement Seminar Part 1. This material is being provided for attendees from all military, police, and peacekeeping forces ahead of the seminar so you can study up and have your questions ready. Our government the way it's supposed to be. You, the unique man or woman, the source of all powers. One of the people, your Christian name, your county, local government, county sheriff in control of soil, national jurisdiction, your Republican state, all the counties together, the Union doing business as the United States. One of the people, your lawful person, trade name, your state, Maine, for example, your governor in control of land and undelegated sea, international jurisdiction, the Federation of States doing business as the United States of America. Your legal person, trade name, your federal state of states, the state of Maine, for example, the United States congressional delegation in control of delegated powers, the United States in Congress assembled, the Confederation of States doing business as the States of America. Subcontractor, British territorial authorities, territorial government, managing federal territories, insular states, and joint naval operations, delegated powers in the international jurisdiction of the sea, United States Congress, doing business as the United States of America. Subcontractor, municipal authorities, civil government, managing the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., delegated global powers, municipal services like the Postal Service and Patent Office, United States Congress, doing business as the United States. Some of you may remember when the United States Federal Marshals wore brown uniforms. Now you know why. They are international land jurisdiction officers, directly employed by the United States of America, our Federation of States. United States Marshals wore blue because they are international sea jurisdiction officers and were originally employed by the Confederation, the States of America. You will immediately notice two things: local governments, the counties DBA the United States, and state governments DBA the United States of America, respectively control the national soil jurisdiction and the international land jurisdiction belonging to the states. The federal government has nothing to do with land or soil in this country, except that the British territorial government is responsible for managing our territories, possessions, and insular states like Guam. The federal government functions entirely in foreign jurisdictions and is under service contracts known as constitutions which allow them to exercise certain delegated powers in our behalf. In the 1700s, federal was a synonym for contract, so the federal government is a contract government. It is under contract to serve the states and people in specific, limited, and enumerated capacities. The states, in return, are under contract to pay for these services as stipulated. Our government the way it was after the Civil War, you, the unique man or woman, the source of all powers. One of the people, your Christian name, your county, local government, county sheriff in control of soil, national jurisdiction, your Republican state, all the counties together, the Union doing business as the United States. One of the people, your lawful person, trade name, your state, Maine, for example, your governor in control of land and undelegated sea, international jurisdiction, the Federation of States doing business as the United States of America. States of America, under Reconstruction, the Federal States of States, under Reconstruction, later mothballed as state trusts doing business as Oregon State, Land Trust, etc. Subcontractor, British territorial authorities, territorial government, managing federal territories, insular states, and joint naval operations, delegated powers in the international jurisdiction of the sea, United States Congress, doing business as the United States of America. Subcontractor, municipal authorities, civil government, managing the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., delegated global powers, municipal services like the Postal Service and Patent Office, United States Congress, doing business as the United States. As you can see, our portion of the federal government is incapacitated. Under Reconstruction, reconstructing it would have been an easy matter if the American populace had been properly informed, but they were not given correct information, so didn't take the appropriate action. British territorial states of states usurped upon and substituted themselves for our American federal states of states, so that, for example, the state of Maine was secretively replaced by the state of Maine. In this way the Brits took over the juicy federal service contracts intended for our own federal service organizations and exercised powers never delegated to them. The Brits began operating what still appeared to be our federal government as a corporate enterprise. They chartered a Scottish corporation doing business in our name as the United States of America, Incorporated. Using this semantic deceit, they published the Articles of Incorporation of this doppelganger as the Constitution of the United States of America in 1868, and declared all municipal United States citizens, that is, citizens of the United States, to be criminals and slaves. The municipal government sided with the South, and the Brits were intent on collecting war reparations from them. The municipal United States government then also organized as an incorporated entity and rapidly spun off many variations of incorporated entities using the same kinds of similar names deceits. United States, Inc. was born, and they similarly declared commercial war against the British territorial citizens known as United States citizens. In this way, both foreign subcontractors, the Brits and the Pope's Holy Roman Empire, colluded to create a perpetual commercial war on our shores. While this would seem to affect only federal employees and perhaps their dependents, both sides of this deliberate arrangement claimed that average Americans were on their side, which provided either side with an excuse for attacking us at will. The British territorial government claimed that we were citizens of the United States. The papal municipal government claimed that we were territorial United States citizens. And both sides of this phony commercial war attacked the innocent bystanders. Average Americans are state citizens of the United States. We are third parties and naturally part of a completely separate population to which these bad actors owe good faith and service. Over time, these criminal collaborators masked as incorporated business entities contrived to gain control of our counties by a process of unlawful conversion. The foreign federal subcontractors had already substituted their own states of states for ours, now they wanted our counties as well. They did this by bribing ignorant people into undisclosed franchise agreements, promising federal block grants, basically corporate kickbacks from the above-described racketeering operations, as a reward. As our counties took the bait, those organizations and their resources were converted and reduced to functioning as mere franchises of the parent, federal corporations involved. Just like the foreign incorporated states of states, organizations replaced and substituted themselves for our American states of states after the Civil War. Counties of counties replaced our actual counties. The British territorial government versions operating as states of states under the original Scottish corporation beginning in 1868, went bankrupt in 1907. This then cleared the way for the Pope's municipal government to come in and establish their own version of states of states organizations, which they briefly did. They incorporated yet another doppelganger. The Scottish doppelganger was the United States of America Incorporated, bankrupted in 1907. The municipal doppelganger was the United States of America, Inc. formed in 1925, bankrupted internationally in 1930 at the Geneva Conventions, bankrupted domestically in 1933, and all by the same person, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. None of this had anything to do with the United States nor with the United States of America. This is all constructive fraud, carried out by foreign governments masked as incorporated service organizations that are supposed to be providing our states and people with limited and enumerated governmental services. They have been secretively acting as predators and privateers against their employers, the American states and people, and misdirecting our public employees and armed forces under color of law. Now, the Pope has pulled the plug on the United States, Inc., yet another iteration of an incorporated doppelganger merely being operated in our names, and the erstwhile British territorial version DBA, USA, Inc., which has been in reorganization for something like 15 years, is due to default on its debts at the end of September 2019. Back in 1976, during preparations for the end of the federal corporation bankruptcy started by FDR, the Territorial Congress released itself from its duty to act as our trustees and foisted that obligation off onto the United Nations via the International Organizations Immunities Act. As you will see, all the state offices were given to the United Nations. And all of this has been going on behind our backs for decades, while we slumbered on, deliberately dumbed down so that we could never object to the bogus and unconscionable commercial contracts and other scams perpetuated by these foreign incorporated service providers. None of this would have been possible without the misdirection of our armed forces by corporate CEOs, like Roosevelt, operating as presidents of the United States of America and presidents of the United States, playing both ends against the middle, us, their feckless employers. Our generals have failed us because they did not see through the similar names deceit, or because they are corrupt. In either case, it is plain to see that none of this actually involves the United States nor the United States of America. It is also clear that it does not involve the actual American states and people. It is entirely the fault and the mess created by the foreign federal subcontractors doing business in our names and against our best interests. What is also clear is that we are the priority creditors of both the Queen and the Pope and all their various corporations, all their banks, all their organizations, and no amount of pandering and guarantees of immunity granted by any territorial Congress relieves them of their debts to us. We are assembling the actual American states and people to reconstruct the government we are owed. We are asserting our actual citizenship as state citizens of the United States. We are holding everyone accountable. We are claiming all the assets and contracts owed to both the United States and the United States of America. And we are operating our government using the power vested in the actual states of the Union. The constitutional law enforcement side of it. Part 1, the militias. It is our duty as Americans to enforce the constitutions. We all know that, yet it hasn't come home to us exactly what that means. The constitutions, there are 3 of them, by the way, not just one, air service contracts between the states and people and the federal service providers under contract. They provide the stipulated and strictly limited services, and we pay them for it. Our part of enforcing the constitutions means holding our service providers to their contracts and feet first to the fire, making sure that no chicanery and abuse such as has been described, goes on. They describe the constitutions as the law of the land because with respect to us, our states and our people, we are on the land. The federal service providers are on the sea, or in the air. So when these federal service providers are dry docked on our land and soil, they are obligated to act according to our law, the law of the land, literally, not the international law of the sea, nor the municipal laws, either. The statutory laws, codes, and regulations what you are all so familiar with as law don't apply to average Americans. These territorial and municipal forms of law apply only to corporations and actual federal employees and their dependents as a condition of their employment. You read that right. All these foreign codes and regulations and statutory laws have been deliberately misapplied to average Americans using the same kind of semantic deceits that created this mess in the first place. Asked if we are U.S. citizens, we are obligated to answer, yes, because we are state citizens of the United States. The verbiage sounds the same whether you are talking about state citizens of the United States, or territorial United States citizens or even municipal citizens of the United States, so of course, innocent and trusting people check the box, yes. Many Americans don't know the difference and aren't taught the difference, for the obvious reason that these predatory, federal service corporations want to involve and entrap Americans in their secretive little commercial mercenary war very quietly taking place on our shores. This is how the territorial government claims that we are citizens of the United States and uses that to attack us, while the municipal government claims that we United States citizens and uses that to attack us, when we are in fact neither apples nor oranges in their system of things, and hold a completely separate status as state citizens of the United States. As their actual employers, we don't even have a dog in the fight. We don't care who provides the services under contract, so long as they do their jobs and act in good faith, this latter issue, good faith, being the defining issue. We, the American states and people, are not at war and have not been at war, commercial or otherwise, since 1814. The problem created by these criminally run amok service organizations can only be solved by self-administration, meaning that each and every one of us has the right and the responsibility to enforce the constitutional guarantees and must do so. Did everyone hear that? Every American, whether they work for a federal corporation or not, is obligated to uphold the constitutional guarantees for every other American. And we all have an equal right and responsibility to do so. That means that old grandma, here, has the right and the duty to enforce the Constitution, just as much as any peace officer or Leo. I am a peace officer, okay? I am one of you, just as much as the boys in blue. I know that is hard to fathom, so take a moment and look around the room. The secret of the American militia is that we are all in the militia, as in Switzerland. We are not as organized about it, but we are operating under exactly the same kind of system of civilian soldiery, and it is not only legal, it's mandatory. So I want to bring your attention to more things about the American militias, because there are many American militias. The word people in Hebrew means the militia. So when we say, we the people, we are saying, we the militia. Think about that. It's not only our right, it's our duty to keep and bear arms. And when the municipal government in Washington, D.C. says one thing against that, they are acting in treason against the very basis of their own existence. Remember, always, that the municipal government is literally created by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the original Constitution. If the Constitution and its rights and guarantees goes, so do they. We guarantee it. The present members of Congress and the Pope may need a reminder of these facts, but facts they are, nonetheless. The British territorial government is in a similar position, except that they do have a few separate land holdings under their control by delegation, which also operate as commonwealths, most particularly Puerto Rico, which has been used as a focal point of their privateer operations, and now, the Northern Mariana Islands, where they have moved their operations. The persons responsible for this are disloyal members of the U.S. military, what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. Our beloved military has been insubordinate and running this country as a foreign military protectorate since 1865. They have substituted the foreign papal Roman civil government for the civilian government, and both groups of our employees have conspired to act as predators upon the people they are in fact hired to serve. Both these centers of financial terrorism, one in Puerto Rico, one in the Northern Mariana Islands, need to be exposed for what they are and destroyed. They and the false claims brought and enforced by the IRS and Internal Revenue Service against the American people must be exposed and the entire system radically reformed, but that is another topic. There has been an effort on the part of the guilty parties to bypass and demonize the American militia, to portray us as violent know-nothing hicks, but in fact, every American adult is a member of the militia. Including those Americans who happen to work for the federal government. Here is the bottom line for the federal employees, both military and federal civil service: if you don't support and protect your actual employers, the American states and people, you don't have a contract and you won't get a pension. If that doesn't motivate their sense of loyalty to this country, I don't know what will. Among those millions of Americans who are employed by the federal government, spread the word. It's your country and your nation at risk. And your pensions, too. Stay tuned for part 2, and for now, take in the fact that all Americans are members of the militia.